We are here for the Redevelopment Commission meeting for the City of Bloomington, October 21st, 2024. Can we have a roll call, please?
No. Lori?
Oh,
Yeah.
Lori McRobbie here, sorry.
Steve Scambolari here.
Randy Cassidy here.
John West here.
Deborah Meyerson here. Thank you. We'll start our agenda with the reading of the minutes from October 7th, 2024. Do we have any questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
So moved. Or a second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the claim register for, we've got two claim registers for October 11th, 2024. I guess we'll do one at a time, or can we do both together?
We can do both together.
Okay, so two claim registers for October 11th and October 25th, 2024. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I had a question. I think it's the second, since we're taking them together, I think it's the second register. That's page 2 of 7. We are, why is this upside down? Marshall Security. I see that we're paying for August and I think it was August and September, but did we not secure in July, or was that just skipped?
Yeah, we got.
Just trying to get to it. Oh, I see where
Can't
you're
get there either.
That's why I
You're
printed.
over sideways?
That's why I printed.
Yeah, that whole
Sorry,
register's
guys.
sideways.
Yeah, and you-
Now Randy was brilliant by printing it.
That's why I
You
printed.
couldn't have found something on the first
Yeah.
page.
No, I'm sorry.
Thanks, John. I think Larry's looking at.
I don't know why.
Maybe we paid July last time period.
No, we didn't pay July. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's in between the 2 months we are.
Is it a missed bill?
Oh. Yeah, let me, wait a minute. It's August.
We paid June.
Yeah, it's June,
We paid
and
June
then
and
it
we paid
goes,
August.
and then it goes to August, and July is missing, so.
It could have just been where they did description in the controller's office, and it could just be,
Let me check.
but we'll look at it for you.
I just.
We did have security during July, so I can confirm that part. I don't know why those two are particularly bunched there. That's a good question.
Question of the timing. Any other
Yep.
questions or comments from commissioners?
I got a couple questions in regards to it. On page 2 of 5 of the first one. First Financial Bank, given the amount of dollars we keep in there, and they're charging fees, bank fees? Is that usual and customary?
Yeah. So is this for the escrow account?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, P&T Engineering in Hand.
If it's at First Financial, it would be escrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those fees, yeah,
Escrow.
those are escrow holdings, and they, starting at the beginning of, I believe it was 2023, it could have been even in 2022,
Correct.
they changed their policies and they started charging
Escrow
for the
payment.
escrow accounts.
Okay. Just curious. Then, this is just a general question in regards to our down payment assistance, just for the general public as a whole, where we got $10,000 under Fund 153. Where does the general public find that down payment assistance program? If they're looking at, because obviously we're providing that.
Yeah, that would be on our city website.
It's on the city website,
It would be under the hand department.
under the hand
Mhm.
department, so the general public's of it.
Yep.
Okay, and then under 5390 on Williams Creek Management Corp., which is our evergreen lots that we've had for several years, that on the homeowners association, is that gonna be does that need to be an ongoing thing we need to look at the beginning of the year to get our maintenance in? Or will that just be ad hoc as it comes up, in order to maintain the property around those homeowners that we've
Yeah.
got?
Typically that gets folded into our maintenance claims at the beginning of the year generally, just because it's for all RDC properties. And anytime we do a contract for like mowing and snow removal, that should also be included. There are things that come up that we do on an ad hoc basis, but we do try to fold those in as much as possible.
Well, Yeah, and the reason I'm asking this, Larry, is so that we have continued maintenance on those lots because it is in the floodway.
Yeah.
So that we maintain, we don't create any additional issues that, on lots we own. So if that needs to be put into a yearly maintenance plan, so they know, hey, you're gonna have to mow this X
Yeah.
number of times to not create any potential backup flooding for those homes.
Yeah, I know we have been mowing it, I just, yeah, I don't know the frequency, so those are things I can ask about and then make sure that they're taken care of.
Okay.
Isn't that a property where there was intended to be an HOA set up and
Yeah.
it's not happening very easily?
That's correct, but we still have been mowing that area ourselves. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be able to get an HOA going
So,
eventually.
Look at the page. This is Marshall
From
Security,
September.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like the Marshall Security for July was paid in September.
So we had that on a prior
Yeah.
claims register, it was September 17th. So for the claims register for that.
Thank you.
And then, under Fund 439, the vet and environmental engineering for Hopewell Block 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, is that part of the brownfield that'll be refunded, or is that just out of ours?
That is out of ours. So that's the NEPA review that's going on the main Hopewell West property that we've been talking to you all about collecting the additional rainwater samples and doing the additional federal review. So that's not covered under the brownfield grant right now. So because it goes above and beyond the phase ones.
Okay, so the phase 2 or anything of this nature has got to come out of the Hopewell budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
For this.
Okay, and then on 444 count on vet environmental on 5900, water leak repair at 212 South Walnut, which that's our new parking garage.
That
So-
one didn't come through me.
So if you can just check on that, I mean, so it struck me odd, the environmental engineering doing a water leak.
Yeah.
That's two.
Mystery. So what was it? Can you scroll down a second? Oh, okay. Can you scroll up just, sorry. What is it? So what that actually is. Okay. We can verify this with you, but actually what I believe that VET payment was for may have been. What is VET? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Because this coincides with. It's just, yeah, because the moisture readings. What I believe is that's a misdescription
Okay.
on that. So they had done the work that's provided on the. I'm looking at the invoice that they provided. They did a lot of field work and moisture environmental. It looks like it's actually what was done at the South Rogers property after the water leak that we had them do there. We had them do some remediation, tearing out the carpet, doing some mold testing inside the building after we had that water leak. All of this on the dates and what they've done here matches up with that. Unfortunately, they did put the wrong address for the
Okay.
project.
For
And so
714.
whoever processed this through our system, it looks like they just went with what was listed on the invoice project as opposed to what I believe the correct project was, which was for 714 South Rogers.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Just misdescription, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just double checking. And then the last one on the first thing is 7768 under Fund 905 on the Bloomington Cooperative Living. Do we have an arrangement to take care of all their bookkeeping? To pay for their bookkeeping? Because
For what project?
it's Bloomington Cooperative Living, 15 Housing Development Fund, 410 West Kirkwood Avenue.
What page are you?
Sorry, it's page 5 of 5.
Page 10 of the PDF packet, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
I was just curious because it's been on the last few months, it's on these two together.
Housing Development Fund.
Yeah, it looks like this is one that we have, a contract with. The construction cost was $91,000. And it was a $166,000 contract. The remainder of that, we're paying staff salaries.
Okay.
So that's,
So the remainder of our total overall grant that we did for the cooperative living, they're drawing that down monthly in a
Yes.
bookkeeping fee.
yes.
Do you know what the overall balance left to go is? Because I'm assuming we'll see
Looks
this.
like $60,730.
Okay, so based on what they're seeing every month, we're gonna be seeing that
For a while,
for quite a while.
yeah.
So they're just drawing it down. And they need that additional amount, or can that be rebonded back?
I think they need it.
Okay. Okay, and it's our agreement's been done.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, that gets then page 2, or packet 2 on that, which will be page 4 of 7 on packet 2, which, the state of Indiana, the 121, is that a reimbursement that we have to do, or is that a?
Is that you?
I don't know which amount you're looking at.
No,
I'm
the
sorry.
121,926 for the 17th Street project, the multi-use path.
17th Street Project Multi-Use Path.
Uh-huh. Multi-use project west. Change order 123. Or CO.
Yeah, and it was to NDOT?
It is to NDOT.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be reimbursable.
Okay.
It went straight to NDOT. That's
our contribution.
Portion of it. The NDOT is accounted for on their side.
Okay, that's where, they pay the rest, they do everything, we just pay our percentage.
If there was any amount left in the federal funds, then they would have just drawn that out on the state side
Okay.
and billed us for what our portion is.
Okay. And then, and this is just minor, on BP Energy Holding on 444 under the hand, 15,000. BP Energy Holding LLC retail charge, above and beyond the utility charge. It's $8.27. It's minor, but, like anything. That one I'll let go.
I don't know who paid that one, so
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, well, we can just look that one. It's not much, but it's just, and then the last one is the 905 under,
What page you on?
on page 6 of 7, which is the
Page
house.
of the packet.
Yeah, 6 of 7 on the,
Got it.
second one. Okay. It's the housing development on Avalon Community Land Trust for construction funding, plumbing, framing, floor. And it's 34.8, so. Trying to look and exact and understand, what Avalon is and what's the,
I know Stephanie just put that through. I'm trying to look it up here if I can get back.
I know a little background about that
Yeah.
project, if it's helpful. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure off the cuff how many rooms it is. I think it's between 10 and 14. It's off of Fountain Drive.
get
It's a
anything to come
parcel that will have new construction. It will be affordable, all units will be affordable, and they sit figuratively on top of a land trust legal structure.
right.
So these will be available for rent, and I believe because they hit such high levels of affordability, they were eligible for Housing Development Fund dollars. So I'm imagining that's why it's hitting our register. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I'm just trying to identify if it's gonna, if it comes through, what our overall total cost is, it's gonna be hitting us. I mean, this is just for parts of it.
Yeah, the total's 140,000.
140, was that already thrown on a resolution? Or is that in something that we don't have any say-so or any discussion on?
Is
Yeah,
that federal
yeah.
money?
Yeah, it's through hand, so it didn't come
It's the
through.
Housing Development
Yeah.
Fund that would come through this.
Okay. Housing Development Fund, so it's just through ESD or hand department
Hand, yeah.
accordingly?
Yeah,
Okay. So that's just something that is informative for the redevelopment
yes,
commission?
exactly.
Okay,
There's 78,200 remaining they're gonna draw from.
okay. And they've started the project?
I'm assuming,
No,
so.
I couldn't find 1500 West 8th, but
Yeah.
Sue's been kind enough to give me a map of where to go, so. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions, commissioners. If there's no other questions or comments, just pausing to make sure, I will ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And we will continue to the payroll register for October 4th, 2024. Any comments or questions from commissioners on this document?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And I want to apologize, when we did the roll call initially, I should have asked for staff present, and I neglected to do that. So I will do that now before we ask for staff reports.
Christina Finley, Hand Department.
Larry Allen, Legal Department.
Jane Cooper Smith, Economic and Sustainable Development.
Roy Aiton, Engineering Department.
Jessica McClellan, City Controller.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have reports from the director?
No, not today.
Okay. Do we have treasurer's report? Any business development update?
No, it will all be under Hopewell.
Okay. Well, next is Hopewell update.
Did you miss legal?
Just
Oh,
one-
sorry.
I do actually have an update, if that's okay. For the legal update, just want to draw your attention to Resolution 2475. There's an update to that resolution. So initially, as part of the memo, I think you saw that there was an attempt to get 3 bidders. There were 2, there was one that was unresponsive, and Masonry had initially stated that they were going to withdraw their bid. They reversed course since we finalized the agreement, so they became the lowest, most responsive bidder. So there's an updated resolution 2475 that I've distributed to each of you with an updated contract, just so that you're aware. So that consideration is now with Masonry. The amount lowered from I think it was $160-some thousand to $147,000 even. I just want to draw your attention to that updated resolution and updated agreement.
Thank you. Okay, so we have had our legal update, and we're on to Hopewell, please.
Yes, thank you. 2 quick updates today. One is just a reminder that there is a public meeting update on Hopewell on the 23rd at the Waldron Arts Center. So that's been promoted a lot. So just wanted to make sure that we say that out loud in this public meeting, but also invite all the commissioners to attend. Also, the public offering for Blocks 9 and 10 is out. We did, after talking to some of the developers, have extended the date for the submission to December the 8th. So that addendum has been issued out to the interested vendors as well as others, and it's been posted publicly. So that is information to help ensure we get just as many submissions as possible on that. And then starting to talk about the timing for Hopewell East for that public offering. So more to come on those. Happy to answer any questions.
Just a clarification, the reissuing, extending the date was to give developers more time as opposed to not getting a sufficient number of proposals?
Right, it's to give developers more time to respond.
Okay.
I've got a comment. Deb, and that's probably not necessarily in your lane, but it might be somebody else's. It would be advisable that if we're going to modify the offering in some way prior to it going public, at least let the RDC know. We get blindsided by that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the original date was in early November, so it was around November 8th. So obviously, we haven't achieved that date yet, so we were still within that time frame. But yeah, understood, and that's why we definitely wanted to say it tonight, so.
Thank you.
On that line, Deb, from extension, how many, you had a mandatory pre-con? Is that a correct statement? Where the previous,
The public
public.
offering does not have a mandatory pre-con as part of it. So that's, we typically do that in all of the construction meetings, but with the development, that is not a standard
Yeah.
operating procedure. But if I misspoken here, Larry can also speak up for that.
I'm just asking how many people showed up.
There was no mandatory
We don't.
meeting, yeah. In this case, I believe that we just asked people to submit. With the extension, I believe it also got pushed back, but submit emails to just state their interest in applying and that their intent to apply, but no meeting
Yeah.
before.
How many people have submitted up front?
I don't know, Jane, do you have?
We have 2 active conversations right now that look very promising, and we anticipate receiving additional interest because we also extended the deadline for the LOI, the letter of interest. Another factor in extending the deadline for Hopewell South is just that feedback from our developers indicates that respondents to Hopewell South are going to be very a different audience than respondents to Hopewell East, which will have denser multifamily development on it, and so, or we anticipate it will. And so we don't think that there's a problem. We think that we can advance these carefully. We think we can advance Hopewell East and Hopewell South at the same time and have them open to market at the same time. So we're working on the East offering, and Deb, I don't know when we'll be bringing that back to RDC, but before too long.
Yeah, I think very likely we'll see that in the November timeframe, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for that Hopewell update.
Deb, one
Yeah.
more. Deb, just again, for the benefit of the public, could you state the details of the open meeting coming up regarding Hopewell?
So I don't know, Jane, would you like to take that, or would
Sure.
you?
We're offering a public update on Hopewell on October 23rd, which is this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. It will be hosted in person at the John Waldron Arts Center in the Rose Fire Bay, and will also be available, people can attend online. So if you're watching from home and attending online, you'll still be able to engage and pose questions during the open Q&A period.
Great, thank you for that
Yeah.
additional detail. Moving forward, we have our items of new business. We have Resolution 2473, approval of change orders numbers 1, 2, and 4 for the Beeline Trail and Multi-Use Path Project. And it looks like we have Mr. Eaton here to speak to that.
Good evening, everyone. Roy Aiton with City Engineering Department. The first one for this evening is the Beeline Extension Project. This is our extension of the Beeline to Fountain, and then the addition of a multi-use path up Fountain and Crescent to connect to our facilities on 17th Street. This first packet of change orders is change orders number 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the project. Change order number 1 in the amount of $1,549.50 was for the removal of some underground water tanks that were discovered during construction. Change order number 2 in the amount of $2,077.20 was for some additional storm pipe connections that were required. Change order number 3 for $1,324.35 was for a drive entrance pipe removal for the HFI property. And then the final one this evening, change order number 4, $1,320.30 was for some additional rock removal for one of our retaining walls. I think in total change orders, the total amount then for all 4 is $6,271.35.
Thank you for that overview. Any questions or comments from commissioners on Resolution 24-73?
Could you further explain change order 3? I'm not sure I understood exactly what.
Drive entrance for pipe removal. So on the driveway entrance to HFI, there is an existing pipe that was under the driveway. Our project installed a new storm inlet to the north of their drive and storm sewer in that area. For some reason, they never took that pipe out during the project in the design phase. So we were reconstructing the drive, but we felt it best not to have that empty pipe sitting under the drive after we put the new one on top that wasn't being used anymore. So it was removed for a better entrance.
Okay, and the removal is our responsibility?
Yeah, because it was not in the original bid. It was discovered kind of, it was never called to be brought out, so it was never bid upon by E&B, or Milestone, pardon me.
Okay, so they're nickel and diming us a little bit.
Yes.
Reality. Not that they're not owed it, but the question is, the engineer missed it, and they're hitting us with it.
Yes. Yep.
And contractually, it's obligated. It's the way it works.
Yes.
It sucks.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're on to resolution 24-74, approval of change order package number 2 for the First Street construction. I assume Mr. Eaton will speak to that too.
It's Roy Ayton again for City Engineering. This is our First Street project, which goes from College up to past Fairview, I believe. And it's a reconstruction of First Street. This evening, we're looking at change orders 2, 3, 4, and 5. Change order number 2 for in the amount of $5,362.41 was for a revised maintenance of traffic plan at First and College. Change order number 3 for $11,529.60 was for additional pavement removal. Change order number 4 for $8,660.53 was for additional signage that was required on the project. And then the 5th change order in the amount of $189,144.49 was for what we are calling construction changes number 2 on the project. And that was involved the water main that was being constructed in First Street. It was shifted because of a conflict with the gas. And when it went through that process, there was some redesign that had to happen with the water. So there were a lot more restraints and things like that that went onto the water main. So that one was probably a more expensive change order for this project.
Is that the kind of thing that comes up just because you don't know what you can't see until you get to it? Or how does it work in terms of not anticipating that from the original scope?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that because it should have been anticipated.
Okay.
So it appears to be an error in emissions on the design side, but we'll have to look at that to see where we are with the error in emissions claim with it. It's work that a lot of it was already work that should have been put into the design of the water main. But it looks like our design consultant didn't coordinate with City of Bloomington Utilities at the time. So when we went to construct it, utilities said, hey, you have to add all this stuff because it's our standards. So a lot of that change order is amounts that should have been already incorporated in the original bid, but were missed on the plans. So it may be considered error and emissions, but they're probably not recoverable error and emissions just because they were always supposed to be in the project. You were always supposed to pay for them. Some of the other items, though, because of the conflicts and things like that, there may be some recoverable charges in there, but we're still looking through that right now.
My question could actually apply to both resolutions. Are we paying more now that we're going back and doing it after the fact? I realize for this example, we were gonna pay for it anyway, we just paying it later than earlier, but now are we gonna dig stuff up and it's costing us more?
Typically, what happens in the change orders, then if things that aren't caught and incorporated in the original bid, they go through change orders, and even though you may have had to have paid for them in original bid if they're caught, you're now paying a premium kind of cost on it, which we lock in all of our contractors to within 25% of where the price should be. but the prices we get on change orders then are in that upper 20%. So we're paying a premium by doing a change order. Try to get everything into the job before bid. But on our larger jobs, there are a lot of items on the job that, and this is a case where First Street was a pretty big job, $6.5 million. And so it's just a lot of things. This is something that they missed.
And this isn't something that's recoverable from CBU in regards to upgrading their facilities? 'Cause
No,
this will all get
this
turned
was,
over to
yeah, the
CBU.
water main that we're putting in is to support the Hopewell development.
Okay,
So it was kind of, it wasn't a betterment, we wouldn't have paid them to do a betterment, but we are expanding their facilities to the point to support the development of Hopewell. So it's a bigger pipe and things like that, so it's,
and it was part of the standards, it just didn't get communicated between engineering, utilities,
and our design
and the
consultant.
design consultant.
Yep, that's correct.
So, basically, we got a miss.
And also on that one, I wanted to bring up, this may be Larry Corbett. In our resolution, I noticed that it's only for $25,552.55, but the actual sum of all the change orders is $214,697.04. I think this evening that what we wanted to do is try to ask for the $214,697.04. And from what I could gather happened was the change order number 5, the larger one for $189,000, $144.49, was on a previous project review form that was approved by the RDC. So it was already listed, and then we listed an additional $25,000 also. But even though it was on the original project approval form, I still think I have to bring the change orders back in to get it.
Correct.
Okay, so this evening's amount, that's what
Okay.
we're looking for. What we're asking for in resolution 2474 would be a total amount of $214,697.04 instead of the $25,552.55.
What, can you give us that amount one more time?
Yep, $214,697.04.
Okay.
And that's the sum of the 4 change orders.
Okay. In our resolution here where it says it needs to be heard by the Board of Public Works.
Tomorrow evening, change orders 3 and 4 will be heard by the board.
Okay, well, it's got 5 too.
Or change order 5, I'm sorry, the other 3 have been approved
Okay.
by the board. I misspoke, yeah, right. Change
Where's that
order number
roll,
5.
where's that roll into in Board of Public Works if they're just hearing it, but they're not looking to pay for part of it?
Yeah, on this project, yeah, we always take our change orders to the Board of Public Works.
Okay, because it's in the public right away.
Right, in this case, it's an NDOT contract, so the actual contract's between Milestone and NDOT, but we'd like to keep our board informed, so we'll take it there also, keep them up to date.
This just happens to fall underneath the Hopewell
Yes.
project
Yep.
as a whole. What's the chances of us recovering anything based on, after your review on this? I mean,
I don't know, I really don't, I'd have to speculate at this
Okay.
point, I really don't know, sorry.
would we be better off, since it's just coming to us at the present moment, to approve the 25,000, hold off on the 189 until after you've had those discussions?
No matter what, that 189, 144.49 is going to be billed to the city by the state, and they will want their money. And then the state's attitude is,
Yep.
if you want to recover it, then you go after these people on your own.
But the state, because it is through the state, they're gonna expect the percentage of that too.
They're gonna want that amount of money, and it is federally participating, that amount of money.
Can't take a chance.
But the truth is, I think on that job, we've already extended our federal money, so it would end up becoming city that will owe the money from the city side.
A little bitter pill.
Yes, yes.
A little bit of a bitter pill here.
We have been working on it for about 5 months now. And the good news is, it was around 250,000 when we started.
Well,
But that's the best I could do, is get it down to 189.
after looking over the details, I will give you credit. All of the details in regards to it are backed up and specific in here. Even to the equipment, time frames. So, you know, I will tell you, I'm not happy about it, because change orders of this magnitude play heck with things on everybody's budgetary standpoint, and additional stress and such on you taking care of things. So, don't like it, but where are we at? The community as a whole is going to owe it irregardless.
Yeah, most likely.
It's just a matter of whose pocket comes out of.
Right.
Any
I was
other?
just- Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask for any other questions or comments.
Just real quick, so normally whenever there's a resolution, and it's not in this particular resolution, but whenever the Board of Public Works is set to review something in the future, we usually include language in the resolution that your approval of any funding would be contingent upon the approval of the Board of Public Works, so I recommend maybe modifying this. So while we're modifying, if you are so inclined to move to modify the amount, I would also urge you to have just a clause that says that any funding approval for change order 5 is contingent upon Board of Public Works approval tomorrow night.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Any comments from the public, either online or in person? Seeing none, I'll request a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
The motion or the second one include the amendments we've discussed? We discussed an amendment to the total summary and then an amendment to the contingent on approval from, and I don't know if you want to read what we've written, so to just have it out there in the legal form.
So just to clarify, the motion to approve resolution 2474 would be with an amended amount, total amount approved from the current of $25,552.55 to the additional to include change order 5 for a total for all change orders, $214,697.04. And then additionally, to make such approval of change order 5 included be contingent upon the approval of that change order by the Board of Public Works tomorrow.
So I will move adoption as amended.
Thank you. And the second
The
still
second
holds?
still holds.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
Opposed.
Got one opposed, so.
One nay.
Okay. So we've got 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Thank you.
Nothing personal.
No, thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Roy, very much.
Moving to Resolution 24-75, Agreement for Masonry Repairs at the Dimension Mill. We heard a little bit about this earlier, but we're not ready for the full report. Who would like to speak to that?
I can start if Jane has something that she'd like to fill in, be appreciative. So as part of, obviously the redevelopment, let me start at the very beginning. The redevelopment commission took over some property from IU that became the trades district that included the Dimension Mill, which the redevelopment commission renovated and entered into an agreement, lease agreement with Dimension Mill Inc. to operate as kind of a tech startup space and event space that has been wonderfully successful, that has been operating over the past 5 years. The lease terms are for 5-year increments. When we negotiated the most recent term, so we're going into basically a term 2 of a 5-year period with the Dimension Mill, there were a couple of outstanding items that have been lingering at the mill that we agreed to repair for the mill itself. And those included the 2 resolutions that are before you tonight. One is for masonry repairs on the outside, which is essentially both tuck pointing around the brick. It is a historic brick structure. At the time it was renovated, a lot of the masonry was in good shape. We still had to tuck point some part of it, but over the course of the last 5 years, you're kind of seeing the rest of some of the brittle mortar between the bricks erode away, and so we want to take care of that as much as possible. And then there's also some issues with flashing around the windows and how the water's flowing around the limestone and brick around the outside of the building as well, that we want to have taken care of during this process. The second part, which is part of a subsequent resolution that I won't get fully into yet, is painting within the mill, specifically painting the ceiling. In this case, for the masonry repairs, our staff, JD Boroff, and the Public Works staff went out to seek bids. 2 came back as responsive. We had Umphris Masonry for $147,000 and Rock Solid Masonry for $163,000, approximately $163,000. In the interim time, just to re-explain a little bit, Umphris Masonry is considering, I think, winding down some business is what our understanding was, and there was an initial reluctance about whether they could complete this project. They had communicated to us that they wanted to withdraw their bid upon discussion about what that would entail. So once you have submitted a bid and you produce a bid bond, if you then withdraw your bid, the city would have the option to call your bid bond essentially for a certain amount. Umphris Masonry did not want to have that happen, so they reversed course and said that they are willing and they believe that they'll have the capacity to complete this project. And that's been relayed to us by J.D. Bora from Public Works, which meant that despite what was in your packet, Umphris Masonry became the lowest, most responsive bidder because they were responsive to the scope of work. They did bid below Rock Solid Masonry, who bid approximately $163,000. So there's significant savings there. Therefore, we have updated Resolution 2475 to be with Umphris Masonry to complete the project of the mill. Because this is a rental property that you all own, and because this is technically maintenance of that property, it does have to come out of the 444 account. It cannot be used for the consolidated TIF because that's what we receive rent income, and we have received rent income from the mill that will ultimately cover these particular charges. So Resolution 2475, that's before you again with Umphris Masonry for a total of $147,000 to do the masonry repair work at the Dimension Mill.
I got one question and a comment. The question is, I just want clarification. The lease actually calls out for us as landlords to do the exterior maintenance of the building.
No. So it doesn't call for us to do the exterior maintenance of the building. What it does call for is really specifically masonry repairs to the exterior of the building. The general lease terms, in fact, call for a maintenance replacement split. So the Redevelopment Commission is in charge of largely replacement of major systems and exterior. The mill itself has been responsible for repairs. They have performed some of those repairs over the years, actually. They have performed some of the repairs to the masonry itself over the years. But we realize that there might need to be a bigger tuck pointing job here. And so as part of kind of just the negotiations that were ongoing, that's why we specifically called out in the extension agreement this particular masonry repair.
And my comment is, I'm not particularly fond of the way we got to this vendor. And I understand that they're the low bidder, but I'm concerned about performance. So.
If I can just add, I was gonna ask what you thought was the distinction between the two bids besides price. It is a big difference. Is it they pay their people less? Are they not doing everything that was in the other bid?
I don't know that it looked like the scopes were comparable. So J.D. Boroff, again, is the expert on this. So some of this we would have to ask him for the specific details. I'm not totally clear on if there was any scope changes outside of them. They were presented slightly differently, as you can see from your packet, to what we have here in terms of how the scope was laid out in the exhibits is slightly different. But as far as I could tell in terms of the flashing and the tuck pointing and the repair of the brick, I think one key difference that I did know, excuse me, I'm just going to pull up the exhibit here. Yeah, there is one key difference that I noted between the bids from myself, and understand that I am a lay person and not experienced in masonry whatsoever. I'd probably get paid a little bit better if I was. But
that's just personal commentary.
That's just personal commentary. Rock Solid Masonry did have a certain amount dedicated for replacement of brick, so whole replacement of brick. If they saw it necessary, that is not included in Umphris Masonry. They are largely just cleaning the brick, doing the tuck pointing, and doing the flashing around the windows.
Okay. I was reading in here, there was a pre-bid that had to be done in regards to this, and there's an engineer that laid everything out.
Correct.
And they submitted their bid on time with the right paperwork.
They did.
Okay, so they did that, but then whatever came about, they withdrew. As long as the legal thing, they did it, everybody's equal time-wise, when it was submitted with the proper paperwork. I've been around Umphress Masonry forever. They've done Fountain Square, they've done significant amounts of restoration, they've even done the Hyper building. So, as far as from a quality standpoint, what they'll stand behind, that's been consistent in my experience. But again, I just wanna make sure everything came out, cause when it says they withdrew their bid on our previous resolution.
Well, what struck me was they were, according to the story, is they're winding down and they're not sure they can take it on, and then suddenly they're not winding down and they can take it on, so I don't.
Yeah, and the only thing I can speak to is that we have used Umphress Masonry also for city projects, and they've done a job that hasn't required my input onto it, so I don't know what that tells you, but I think an admirable job of
Yeah.
the work.
And they've worked on this building before
Yeah,
as
correct.
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in terms of their being able to complete the job, is there anything in this contract, I'm not seeing anything, that somehow makes them less accountable for doing what they promised to do?
No.
So
No.
I think that's what we rest on then. So.
And there will be escrow money on this job.
Yes.
So, we have the final say-so in regards to keeping.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's over $100,000, so we have escrow language in this.
okay.
My last question that maybe kind of just complement the other commissioners' questions, which is the definition of, is it responsive and responsible that are the criteria in terms of the selecting?
Yes.
And so just understanding how those terms are applied, because again, as a layperson, understanding what it means to recall the bid bond, it sounds like arm twisting, which, again, that's the way business is done sometimes, I guess, but nonetheless, I'm trying to understand how that aligns with the idea of responsive and responsible if it's under duress that somebody's being brought back into their bid.
Well, duress is a very particular word. I don't know that
Okay,
this
I'm
is
not
under
the lawyer,
duress.
so just.
I think
use
it was
synonym if
essentially, it was just an option was given. So
Okay.
to say this is under duress isn't exactly accurate. What it was though is to say, we understand, that's fine. Here's what we would do. So you have the option of paying X amount out of the bid bond if you'd like to withdraw your bid, or you can honor your bid and go forward with the work. It really is up to them. That's a business decision that they can make.
Okay.
The bid bond isn't for the entire amount of the project. It's a lower amount for sure, but it was just the option given to them. And for any mistake, it could be likely it's more of an internal city of Bloomington communication. As communications were ongoing, there was a conversation that happened between JD and Umphress that just wasn't communicated to anyone else, and so we weren't aware that they were willing and able to do the work, and so that's kind of where the miscommunication came in and how this ended up happening the way it did. So that's my responsibility, just frankly as well, is to confirm with JD that our last conversation about it was still accurate. So, and I failed to do that.
Is it our policy as bids come in that if it is a bid bond situation, that we would cash the bid bond if someone withdrew on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's typically what, a 5 or 10%
Yeah.
cost that is paid out irregardless. I mean, that's just, okay.
I mean, I would say there's also probably a scenario where we'll negotiate with the contractor depending on what
Okay,
the amount
but
is.
typical policy is.
But the
if
typical
you
policy, that's
withdraw-
exactly why you have the bid
You
bond.
got the
That's
bid
what
bond.
that's in place for. That's what you pay for it for.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments from commissioners? If not, we'll ask for any comments from the public. Seeing none,
Jeff.
public. We do have a comment from the public, please.
Excuse me, my name is Joe Davis. Do I understand that there's only one bidder?
No.
right now. No, there are other bidders as well.
So just
It was.
as a point of order also, Joe, so this is for public comment, no questions really, it's just gonna be rhetorical, so if you wanna make your
okay.
comment, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure where this falls into who holds responsibility. I am a member of the mill, and on any rainy night, when you come in through the event hall location, down on the lower level, where that glassed sort of entry double doors are, water comes in straight off of the exterior. It just flows right in. There needs to be some caulking that to be done to keep the water from coming in right there. And I brought this up with staff at the mill, but also on the interior, there is efflorescence on the interior brick. As you look up there, you can see where there's new, fresh efflorescence from water coming in through the exterior tuck pointing. So it is failing, and definitely it needs to be re-tuck pointed. I don't know if it's the entire brick wall system, but certainly if you go walk around on the inside and look up at all the brick around there, especially I think I noticed this on the north-facing interior brick wall, there is efflorescence, and that's where it's sparkly, and you can see sort of what you're seeing is actually like the lime from the limestone in the mortar kind of like releasing, washing out of the mortar itself, and it creates a sparkly sort of appearance. So it definitely needs to be addressed, and I can well imagine that the limestone lintels as well need to be potentially reflashed to keep that water from coming inside, because if this is an ongoing maintenance issue for the RDC, then this needs to be addressed ASAP, in my opinion. So thank you, those are my comments.
Thank you.
John Fernandez is on.
That's a cursor, I think.
Yeah, I think
Is that
that's a
hand-
cursor.
It's not a hand up?
Yeah, I think that's just the cursor.
Move it, make sure. Because he's a tenant, so.
Right.
He's not-
Any
he's
other
still on
public
mute.
comment?
That was a cursor.
Okay.
I am gonna make one more comment. I'm gonna vote no, but it's got nothing to do with the fact that I don't believe it needs to be done. I'm just, at this point, I want to know more about the vendor.
It would be helpful to have JD Borough be part of this meeting to address the questions that the commissioners have raised, because it is a little difficult to move forward without some of those questions answered, even though we certainly appreciate, Mr. Allen, that you've done your best to fill in the gaps. So, yeah, no,
Ladies
any
first.
other comments before
Go
we
ahead.
ask for a motion?
Yeah, there are elements of vendor selection and so forth that I'm not wild about, but that's why I asked the question, is there anything in how this is written or how this has been revised that somehow makes them less accountable or less answerable to us for doing this work? And your answer was no. So I'm satisfied with that, so I'll be voting yes.
With that, yeah.
Well, just a question, again, this is being a newbie here. Is it within, I assume it's within our scope to table this till the next meeting if we can get JD Borough to come? Does that matter at this point?
I would
Or-
just ask commissioners to consider, and we can clarify the possibility, but we just heard from a tenant in the building about what I would call the relative urgency of that repair.
Yes.
And
right.
I would also appreciate Commissioner Scambolari's comment in terms of clarifying that the scope of the contract, as the resolution would approve payment for, would cover the scope of what's needed. So I'm just making observations in terms of, for commissioners' consideration. I'm not recommending anything. Everybody has their own vote, obviously. So anyway, with the question that
more of a
has been
procedure.
asked. Do you want to clarify in terms of what the options the commissioners may have?
Sure, absolutely. The options would be, obviously, move approval as amended here tonight. So with Umphreys Masonry, you could, of course, if that failed, that would mean we'd have to bring a new resolution before you to reconsider that. You could also move to postpone consideration of this resolution until the next meeting. That is a motion that could be made before the up or down vote on the resolution itself.
Well, there really was just a kind of procedural question. I have heard enough personally to feel comfortable moving forward. I'll vote yes.
Okay, so having had some of those questions clarified, I will request a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended resolution of 2475 to award to the lowest bidder as stated in the resolution.
And I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay, we have 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Thank you. We are now on to our next mill resolution, which is 24-76, agreement for painting at the mentioned mill. Who would like to speak to that?
So I can start this one off without the big lead up to it, since I did that the first round. So this is the second part of that. The other issue that the mill has been experiencing for some time is some paint chippage on the ceiling throughout the mill. And so what this would do is essentially repaint the entire ceiling and prepare it in such a way that we would take care of that issue. We believe that some of that issue was related to kind of the historic nature of what was painted over when it was redone. It could also be due to some of the moisture levels in the building itself. So there were a lot of factors there, but this would be to repair that once and for all. Very similarly, bids were required. Premier Painting was the lowest bidder, so for $44,320, they could complete this work. Jay?
I might anticipate a question Mr. West may pose about why the city is proposing that you all pay for repairs on the interior of the building. We consider this to be kind of a holdover, almost a construction defect, but it didn't materialize within the window of the warranty. But it is related to the existing, like pre-existing conditions. So they have done a small repair, so they know this method will be successful in keeping the paint intact and on the ceiling. And so again, are trying to make this repair more broadly across the building. I will also say, Mr. Davis is still here, but as a mill user, I used to use it very regularly and was there for an all-day meeting. There are chips that fall from the ceiling. It's pretty disruptive and also feels equally urgent to the other issue. I don't know if that's too much color commentary, but thank you.
Well, you answered one of my questions, so thank
Okay.
you. 90% of the time when we have paint chipping like that, it's often due to some latent moisture problem. And I'm concerned that we just be really sure we get to the problem and we're just not doing some surface maintenance that we're gonna come back and have this conversation 2 or 3 years from now. That's not outlined anywhere, so I'm not suggesting that the vendor doesn't know what they're doing. I'm just saying I'm just not sure what process they're gonna go through.
There were 2 things, two responses to that. So in the bid response process, one of the things that JD kind of opines in his memo to you all is that he believed that it was not initially cleaned properly, was a factor before the last painting. And to Jane's point, this kind of manifested itself later. The other point that I would raise in terms of the moisture issues, particularly for the Dimension Mill, and you may remember this from the last time you were on the Redevelopment Commission, Commissioner West, which is to say that the mill was actually not a weatherproof building at the time. There was water flowing down into it, and so The difference has been, so there's kind of active moisture in the building, but also kind of airflow differences. Once we sealed that off, we kind of sealed a lot of stuff in it, and we have had some ongoing things with a very old building. I know that some of you may remember we were also dealing with an odor issue in one of the offices that we have done several things to try to mitigate, and just one of those things of like when you seal up an old building like this, some things pop up that I think you don't anticipate. So I think that maybe it's possible that that moisture of just the humidity of people being active in the building and actually having it weatherproof for the first time may have affected those wood beams, because they are essentially the first line of defense for any water that was coming in and over the years. So what our hope is, though, is having professionals look at this, is that we've allowed the building to kind of stabilize at this point with tenants and with the improvements, and that this will actually help the problem. But that's kind of how we've discussed it internally in terms of getting this done and getting it approved, so that we can move forward with it's a great facility. So.
Outside the warning period, so we're stuck with it. And that's a matter of taking care of the tenants accordingly. And we are getting compensated, and we have the financial wherewithal in the 444 account to do both of these projects and not put ourselves in a financial issue.
Yes.
Okay. And then from a standpoint, we don't have, since it's below, we're not gonna have an escrow on this one.
Correct.
So this is just a matter of making sure, and our facilities manager for the city of Bloomington will be overseeing this to verify things. And based on the scope that's been put, when you mentioned the moisture, do we have a particular moisture content that we need to verify in regards to it before there's adherence to the paint?
I don't know what that percentage is.
I know, that's why I'm just, yeah, go ahead.
Well, do we know whether or not they've actually done a moisture reading on the ceiling?
Good question. I mean, I have to assume that they have, because this has been ongoing for so long, but I don't know that we have documentation or, of that. So I
Oh,
don't think
there's
I can.
John. Maybe
Yeah.
John's hands up. Maybe John
Look at
knows.
that guy.
Yeah.
Knows things.
Mr. Fernandez, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to whether or not there's been a moisture count. I just want to say that I appreciate the city moving forward with these necessary repairs. As one of our mill members mentioned earlier, it can be disruptive, and really, I think on behalf of the mill, we really appreciate that in the renewed lease that we specifically called out some of these items that have been lingering, and the city agreed to move forward with them. So we, like some of the commissioners, there's a little bit of pause with the previous one in terms of the vendor, but as it relates to this painting, it's overdue. It's really important, and we just look forward to working with the city's team and the ultimate vendor to ensure that we can move forward with these painting repairs in a way that mitigate any disruption of our operations. I'd appreciate the commission's support for moving forward with this.
Well, I'm not suggesting we don't go forward with it. I'm just wondering if I just want to make sure we're just not doing this again. So.
Who is the party responsible, let's say, for coordinating different efforts to ensure, let's say, whether it's the masonry repair, assuming that would resolve possibly some of the moisture issue that's causing the paint, who's kind of looking at the bigger picture to kind of sequence the order of work so that one is taken care of before, so that before painting happens, there is some measure of impermeability that's been established? Just whose job is that?
It really happens in conjunction. So we have JD on our side, as we mentioned. So since he's our facilities manager, he's kind of the person that checks for the city. But the mill has its own facilities person that is also been in my experience, that has changed as who that person is over the years. And Jane, maybe you know who, I don't know who the
I
current person
apologize,
is.
I don't remember his name off the cuff. And then the mill also has an operations manager who's really looking big picture at what's going on and fielding a lot of those issues from the facilities manager there too.
Yeah, so we would expect them to be highly involved in this process during the repairs, and by necessity, as you might think, because if you're painting the ceiling and you're going in there, you're disrupting people's work, so we need to coordinate all of that together. Our experience in the past has been the mill's been very on top of this in terms of telling us, diagnosing what it is.
Okay, and just trying to clarify that there's not too many cooks in the kitchen in the sense of like somebody thinks that somebody else was taking care of that, because, you know, there's obviously different parties involved, the city's paying for it, even if the mill has its operations manager or property manager who's taking care of the day-to-day stuff, and just trying to make sure that there's not some oversight that's being overlooked because of different people thinking it was someone else doing it. And I'm just seeking any, I mean, I appreciate the attestation of their reliability, but just trying to
Yeah, and
get
I
it
think
spelled out.
we can commit to following up with JD and the mill operations director directly about moisture reading, looking at the moisture content of the wood beams and making sure that these are sequenced correctly.
Yeah, and this,
Right.
for the purposes of this contract also, this stops with us, so we'll communicate that this is our responsibility, so the ultimate responsibility is ours.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And they're, reading what I was reading in the resolution previously, there's an engineer that laid out the specifications for the masonry tucks pointing. But we don't have that specific basis on the painting. And just ask from standpoint of experience that we check the moisture rating, and then they just make sure that whatever product they're utilizing falls within that moisture reading. So we have specific adhesion to the existing.
Good.
Thank
Now we're maintenance experts.
you. Yeah.
You own a lot of buildings.
They won't be bringing us a resolution like this again.
We've heard comments and questions from commissioners. Any comment from the public? Mr. Davis.
Yes, Joe Davis. I would just like to second the concerns of Commissioner West and Cassidy that there needs to be some ongoing mitigation efforts to control the moisture. The best thing would be humidistat-controlled fans that would be up there at the top, at the peak, where the temperature is changing so dramatically throughout the day and the seasons. That's where all the condensation is being formed. So if the repainting is done thoroughly, where all of the wood surfaces are sealed by the paint, including the ends, including the cracks, and inside of those cracks, then that'll go a long way toward keeping the wood from swelling and shrinking with the change in humidity. But also too, just having those fans moving air can do wonders for stabilizing a moist or a too dry environment. So my suggestion would be to also invest in some sort of a fan-controlled humidistat system to help keep that just self-regulating and protecting the investment of the building itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? In light of Mr. Davis's comment, this is just me trying to connect the dots. Again, my question was, we've got the city involved, we've got a couple people at the mill involved. The humidistat fans that were just proposed do not appear to be the scope of work. And so my question is, even just the pure kind of looking at the permeability that both Mr. Cassidy and Mr. West have brought up, how's that being established? And how can that, because I don't feel like it's my job to say fans should be in there. I'm here to make sure the money's being spent appropriately. So my question is, how to take that proposal or other concerns that have been raised by commissioners today to really securely address the issue so that it does not come back here again?
I mean, that's a tricky question. With the suite that had the odor issues, it was a full team effort. We had engineers come in and really evaluate the space, and the solution that was reached was after a great deal of really smart environmental engineers worked on this site together. JD has decades of experience in building maintenance, and I think he is really the one who's driving this solution. But it wouldn't feel great to me to have us paint this and then come back with a different repair being needed. So I really don't want 2 steps back. I know the mill staff really wants to move forward with this painting repair, but I'm just being direct, that, you know, we just haven't evaluated it at that level, and I think we could, but the recommendation that was given to us wasn't that it was needed, so.
Yeah, we do rely on our experts here, and we also rely on our tenants, obviously, because they're on the ground and they see this all the time. But what we can do here, just in the similar way, I think, to doing the moisture, is just to pose the question and see if this is something that we think is additionally needed, or if this repair would take. And if there's something that we need to do to come back, then we would do that quickly, as opposed to hopefully 5 years in the future.
Mr. Fernandez?
Well, what we're suggesting though is not, I mean, I don't have any problem with the resolution, but as it's written, what I have a problem with is how we're getting there. And so doing moisture readings isn't a standard. It's not a big expense, it's not a big deal.
No, that's easy.
So, I mean, if we could just add that to the scope of the work, that'd be a nice start.
Yeah.
And then if we have to do something for preventing future problems that's outside of the scope of the painting, that's another ballgame. That's, you know, funds that are gonna have to be allocated at a later date. But I just don't wanna just cover it up with, scrape it and paint it and call it a day. And so I just wanna be sure that we're doing everything we need to prep it and know what our issues are before we move forward. And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to bring the resolution back. I think it's just commentary, and it's, you know, everybody needs to be aware of it and move forward accordingly.
You're dealing with professional painters, so it's not as though we're just dealing with, you know, the neighbor that says, come over and paint my house. In regards to, you're dealing with professional. We just want to verify that the moisture content meets the application of the product that's being utilized, in order to make sure that it doesn't come back, that we're just not covering up a moisture issue. So.
Mr. Fernandez, would you like to add a
Yeah,
comment?
I was just gonna address your earlier concern, Deborah, in regard to the number of people involved. I can tell you the line of communications are very direct between our facilities manager, Gerald Stevens, and the city staff. So I don't have any heartburn about the level of responsiveness, collaboration. I think it's been very, very good. I mean, Gerald, like JD, has, you know, a wealth of experience in facilities management, which is on a level that we've never had before, frankly, you know, at the mill. So I feel very confident that not only will there be a tremendous amount of coordination and cooperation and moving forward with all these repairs, but thinking through in a proactive way, you know, how do we monitor going forward, making sure that we're doing the right things in terms of managing the facility in the city's behalf.
Thank you. There are no other comments or questions. I will ask if we have a motion.
I'll move approval of resolution 24-76.
Second. We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimously approved for resolution 24-76. Thank you. Our last item, or resolution on today's agenda is resolution 2477, approval of funding for appraisals for real property within the allocation areas for the purpose of possible acquisition, conveyance, and redevelopment. Who would like to speak to this?
I can speak to this. So this is typically a resolution that we do at the beginning of the year to kind of allow for the updating or taking new appraisals of property. Almost anything that the redevelopment commission does in terms of disposition or redevelopment or conveyance of property requires 2 independent appraisals. This resolution comes before you now in part for 2 reasons. One, as we changed administrations at the beginning, we kind of wanted a period of time to see what the approach would be, whether we needed any resolutions in terms of or any updated appraisals. We've gone through that settling in period here. Now with the convention center kind of moving forward and the redevelopment commission owning some property around the convention center, it is necessary, just frankly, to get some updated appraisals for that. So this is up to an amount of $20,000 for those independent appraisals. For right now, at this moment, we anticipate obtaining 2 immediately for convention center related property. This would allow us, though, a little bit of leeway between those 2 appraisals till the end of the year if we need to get any other updated appraisals. Those have to obviously be presented to you. The findings of those appraisals have to be presented to the redevelopment commission. Typically, because those are not for public inspection, we do those in executive session when they're part of a real property transaction strategy of how we're negotiating that transaction. So you would see the results, hear the results of the appraisals, get an update on those, but this is essentially permission for us to enter into those agreements to go out and seek the independent appraisals that we need. This particular funding resolution is for up to $20,000. It would expire December 31st, 2024. If the administration deems it or the RDC deems it necessary, we might come back in the new year and kind of have a general resolution and approach for you. But this is just covering what our immediate needs are right now and what we anticipate bringing for you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Nope.
Is there a reason we don't list specific properties for which we anticipate getting appraisals?
Yeah, so the reason has more to do with purchasing than it has to do with conveyance. So the reason why I'm comfortable, saying that we're doing this because the property you're holding now is because that we know the project that's going on that's kind of out there very publicly. The reason why we don't typically list individual properties is particularly for purchasing. And so as we're in early negotiations, one of the concerns is that as we go to the appraisal process for a very specific property, we kind of invite speculation on that property, and it can potentially hurt the negotiation strategy around a particular property. So that's why we've done it. Now, in the past, I'll just for full transparency, in the past, the Redevelopment Commission has had individual resolutions where it's named the property. So if that ultimately is the desire of the commission, we could go back to that method. But in terms of this method allows us to go through the process in accordance with the statute, so we know we can keep a certain amount of negotiated pricing and negotiations of the prices without having private speculators potentially come in and drive up the price of real estate with us or potentially scoop it up as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Any comments from the public?
Yes, my name is Joe Davis again, and I represent the taxpayer objection petitioners. And we can see that coming down the pike is the proposed sale of the Bunger and Robertson property just north of the existing convention center, which is one of the properties that is going to be conveyed potentially. And the CIB's hotel group has chosen Doral Hotelier to purchase that. And as we've learned, every hotelier that has looked at purchasing that property for $7 million has, all 3 of them have suggested that they need public buy-in. In other words, they need public subsidy. And we, the public, currently own the Bunger and Robertson property. Maybe it was purchased for too much money, but we own it. It is ours. And its highest and best use, since we already possess it, is to hold on to that property. Because 5 years from now, it might be worth $15 million. It might be worth $20 million. At the rate that real estate is increasing in value, that land is too valuable to sell away to some entity that is not going to do anything to serve our community. We have plenty of hotels downtown. I was just standing with an early voter just south of the former Napa building, and he pointed out, look, there's a hotel, there's a hotel, there's a hotel. That was just visible from that location, which is to the east of the existing convention center. Now, it is, of course, we state that it is foolhardy to expand the convention center in the way that it is proposed, because again, this is public land. Its highest and best use is for the public. It is not for local government to create business enterprises such that they can generate more operating funds by taxation. That is not the role of local government. And so we ask that you do not approve this resolution for appraisal, because if an appraisal needs to be done, it might need to be done 5 years from now, 7 years from now, maybe never on this property, unless that's a requirement for a development that is for the people in a civic use, in a high use. Our land is not reproducing itself. We have to hold tight to what we have, and we have to use it for its highest and best purpose that serves our public. Thank you.
Mr. Davis? Okay, I'm not seeing any other public comment. Any final questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I will take a motion.
Move approval of resolution 2477.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That is all our new business on the agenda. If there's anything else on tonight's agenda, other business? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect.
Thank you. All in favor, we will adjourn.